Undoubtedly, he saw that a terrible death awaited them in the flames, and his was only a terrible chivalry. Then came the love amid the flames. He brought another girl to the window. Those of us who were looking saw her put her arms about him and kiss him. Then he held her out into space and dropped her. But quick as a flash, he was on the windowsill himself. His coat fluttered upward. The air filled his trouser legs. I could see that he wore tan shoes and hose. His hat remained on his head. Thud dead. Thud dead. Together they went into eternity. I saw his face before they covered it. You could see in it that he was a real man. He had done his best. We found out later that in the room which he stood, many girls were being burned to death by the flames and were screaming in an inferno of flame and heat. He chose the easiest way and was brave enough to even help the girl he loved to a quicker death after she had given him a goodbye kiss. He leaped with an energy as if to arrive first in that mysterious land of eternity. But her thud dead came first. The firemen raised the longest ladder. It reached only to the 6th floor. I saw the last girl jump and miss it. And then the faces disappeared from the window. But now the crowd was enormous. Though all this had occurred in less than 7 minutes, the start of the fire and the thuds and the deaths, I heard screams around the corner and hurried there. What I had seen before was not so terrible as what followed. Up in the 9th floor, girls were burning to death before our very eyes. They were jammed in the windows. No one was lucky enough to be able to jump, it seemed. But one by one, the jams broke. Down came the bodies in a shower, burning, smoking, flaming bodies with disheveled hair trailing upward. They had fought each other to die by jumping instead of fire. The whole sound. Unharmed girls who had jumped on the other side of the building had tried to fall feet down. But these fire torches, suffering ones, fell inertly, only intent that death should come to them on the sidewalk instead of in the furnace behind them. On the sidewalk lay heaps of broken bodies. A policeman later went about with tags which he fastened with wires to the wrists of the dead girls, numbering each with a lead pencil. And I saw him fasten tag number 54 to the wrist of a girl who wore an engagement ring. A fireman who came down the stairs from the building told me that there were at least 50 bodies in the big room on the 7th floor. Another fireman told me that more girls had jumped down the air shaft at the rear of the building. I went back there into the narrow court and saw heaps of dead girls. The floods of water from the fireman's hose that ran into the gutter were actually stained red with blood. I looked upon the heap of dead bodies, and I remembered these girls were shirtwaist makers. I remembered their great strike of last year, in which these same girls had demanded more sanitary conditions and more safety precautions in the shops. These dead bodies were the answer. And that is an article, first person account, obviously, about the nightmare of a fire at the Triangle Shirtwaist Company in Greenwich Village, New York City. And the story came from United Press reporter William Shepard, who happened to be there, just watching the disaster unfold, and who phoned in the details to a young newspaper employee by the name of Roy Howard, who telegraphed the story to the nation's newspapers. And that article was first published in the Milwaukee Journal, March 27th, 1911. And the fire killed 146 garment workers, 123 women, 23 men. The oldest victim was 43 years old, the youngest 14 years old. Many were recent Italian or Jewish immigrants. And part of the reason that they were up there, even as this fire consumed the building, is that many of the doors to the stairwells and the exit doors in the factory were locked shut in order to prevent workers from taking unauthorized breaks, or to stop them from maybe stealing some of the goods that they were making. Just a complete nightmare. And we try and find some good in that story, if there is any to be found. It's that fire led to eventual improvements of safety standards in these types of factories. And this singular event was a catalyst for massive growth of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. And that union got together and fought and were successful in improving working conditions in these types of sweatshops. And over time in America, these conditions did improve. And this is also a story of the incredible sacrifices that American workers have made over time to build this great country and to build our great economy. And if you look universally, you can see improvements in the conditions that people work in America. But we have to remember that there are other areas of the world that have not made any of these improvements. And much of the labor conditions overseas, especially when it comes to the garment industry, the conditions are still brutal. There's a group called Anti-Slavery International, and they report that about a fifth of the cotton production in the world can be linked to forced labor. For example, much of the forced labor in China, those are ethnic Uyghurs. Those are the slaves over in China. No safety training, no safety protocol, exposure to harmful chemical, bad air, extreme work hours, 9 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It's bad. Conditions that are illegal in this country, but it's the standard overseas in many places. And why am I talking about this? Because we have been trying to do something about it, and we actually have been doing something about it for a few years. Who's we? It's myself and the rest of the incredible team, including the team that actually works the machines at Origin USA. Incredible group that gets this work done and takes pride in this work. And the team at Origin USA and Jocko Fuel is who's making a difference right now. And that includes my main partner in these two endeavors, Peter Roberts. And he is here once again to get us up to date on this fight to improve the condition of manufacturing and bring it back to America, where we have a positive work environment. We have a good work environment. We have a work environment where when you walk the floors, you have people with pride and smiles on their faces in the job that they're doing. So, Pete, thanks for coming back, man. It's been a while.
Happy to be back. It's been way too long.
Well, if you haven't listened to, so you first came on the podcast was podcast 93. You were on podcast 93, podcast 141, podcast 94. Those are about a year apart each. September 2017, September 2018, September 2019 is when they came out. We recorded them all in late August, which is right now, late August 2021. We're recording this. We've recorded all of them at the Origin Jiu-Jitsu camp, immersion camp up here in Maine. And we didn't record last year at all because it was the year of COVID 2020. And so we didn't do camp.
Yep.
Did I come up? I came up one time in 2020 for some reason. Didn't I?
I don't think so.
Was it
because you would
zero?
No, because you would have seen the expanded facilities.
Oh, that's right.
I came out and saw you in Montana.
That's what
And I came out and saw you in California just at the beginning March of 2020 for the Vitamin Shop launch.
I must have come out right before COVID hit because I remember being up here in the winter because we were walking through the snow.
Yeah, that's right.
We were walking
right through the downtown.
Right down High Street,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, so I knew I must have been right before COVID.
It must have been, yeah.
But if you haven't listened to those podcasts, if you want to know why Pete's here, if you want to know how we ended up joining forces and doing what we're doing, go back and listen to 93, 141, then 194. If you've listened to those, if you've been tracking, if you've heard any of Echo, Charles, talking about various gear to purchase, then this is what we've been talking about. So you probably are somewhat aware of the situation that's going on. But a lot has happened in the last 2 years since we did a podcast. And just wanted to bring you on, talk about what we've been doing, the progress we've made, the setbacks we've had, the lessons that we've learned, and where we're planning to go from here. I mean, when you think about 2020 and everyone, big negative on 2020, everyone hated it, etc., all kinds of issues. But heading into 2020, coming out of 2019, we had a ton of really positive momentum, a lot of positive growth. Things were kind of on a really solid track. Trajectory was looking outstanding. And so we were in a pretty good place. Now, we also had some missteps. I know you like to call them tuition payments.
Yes, we did make some tuition payments. Last time I was on, I filled you in on the jeans tuition payment. Remember we did that real time?
Yep.
I had to make like 500 pairs of jeans before we got it right.
Yep.
That grew a little bit.
We have been struggling with, and we paid some tuition payments on mold cars.
We did, and actually, when you were reading that, I couldn't stop, but I couldn't help but think about my great Yaya, and she was an immigrant from Sparta, Greece.
So Yaya is Greek is that just like your personal nickname, or is that everybody?
No, everybody that's Greek has it. You call me Yaya.
You can't just throwing out Yaya around here.
Yeah, no.
I'm American.
She lived to 105, so my kids got to meet her.
Is that the aunt of?
That's the mother of my Aunt Kay, who just turned 9. You sent that video to.
No, your mom's in your great aunt.
Yes,
she's in the game.
Oh yeah, she
loves.
She's like,
she's listening to this podcast right now.
She's like, if I ever get to the job, I've got to put that makeup on. I got to make sure I look good. Yeah, she just turned 90, and so she has trusted me with. It's really with a crocheted blanket that my great Yaya was like a Lowell mill girl, so she worked in these mills, the speaker, as an immigrant in the very early 1900s in Lowell, Massachusetts. And she used
this story took place in 1900.
Exactly, and I was thinking about this the whole time. She used to pick up the skinners, like the little bit of yarn, and she'd take it home with her, and she'd crochet and make blankets and stuff.
So you have one of those habits
in my office. shipped it up to me. She'd been trying to figure out who she should give it to and trust it to, basically.
And she saw that you had a freaky bloom.
Oh yeah, I gotta send it up.
This is the guy.
So I've got it up in there.
What an incredible thread of personal history.
I'm gonna frame it. At some point when we build a massive new factory, it'll be hanging in the front lobby.
That's incredible. So that story that's Yaya could have been.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about. Like the working conditions, of course, have improved since then. But when people ask me, like, why would someone want to work in a factory? I think about, well, I talk about my grandparents and great grandparents who all work in factories, tanneries, and mills, and they always said to their kids, our parents, the baby boomers, don't work in the factories. But they always romanticized about working in the factories. And I never could figure out why did they romanticize about it and always reflect on it, but then tell their kids not to do it. I didn't understand until right now. That's why. Because the